Hi, I'm Ryan Sutter. I am joining you here from the Nuclear Gover studio, and I want to talk about something that has really just been, I've really been trying to figure out how I feel about it. Last Saturday, I went to a technology conference in the Twin Cities here called Minibar, and about, half of the presentations that took place at this conference were related to AI, using AI to manage a business, using AI to generate art, using AI to generate music, using AI to solve the world's problems. And I know that AI in and of itself is not really news. This is something that's going on for a while now, obviously. But I've studied it a bit. I read the excellent book "How Smart Machines Think," which I have down in the show notes, and I highly recommend that book. By the way, what I'm finding is there's something about this that's getting under my skin. Something doesn't feel good about what's happening with this technology. And I have been a technology professional and a musician, artist, and creative entrepreneur for my entire adult life. So I have feelings on the subject. So the other day I sat down and I wrote them up. There's a post on my blog about this, but I'm essentially going to use that as a script for this video, and I'm going to probably go off script a few times with additional thoughts I've had since I wrote this. So when something seems to be bothering me kind of an inordinate amount, I try to look at it as an opportunity to self-reflect. I ask, like, why is this bothering me so much? I mean, what nerve is being touched, and why is that a nerve for me? And to sideline for a second, go a little sidetrack, I remember my first brush with social media websites way back in the olden days when MySpace first popped up. By the time MySpace had launched, I had already been online in one way or another for like 10 years. I had built personal websites. I was working as a software developer. I had been proto-blogging on sites like LiveJournal and Diaryland, and somebody told me there was this new site called MySpace and that I should check it out and like put my music up there and all this stuff. And so I went and looked at it, and it just felt kind of off. It was like I was taking a sniff from a bottle of milk and it was just beginning to sour. It didn't feel compelled to want to join. And I just had this gut reaction because it only took a few milliseconds for my brain to like picture this future where instead of people making their own quirky websites with their own individual expressions of creativity and their own oddball ideas of how things should be, I kind of saw everybody dumping their creativity into this kind of pre-existing mold. With, granted, some customizations required or allowed, but really there's this templated website, and it would serve to kind of collect all of these ephemeral human creations, all this into this like little pen, and then that would allow the runners of the website to commodify all of this content once the people had been kind of corralled, and then they could monetize it. And I don't want to like retroactively give myself credit for, having more foresight than I really had. I had been a technology professional for a long time by this point. I'd read books like Being Digital by Nicholas Negroponte about kind of the future of technology. And I was an enthusiast going all the way back to childhood when I played with 8-bit computers and taught myself to code. So, and I mean, also I had been on AOL and CompuServe like before internet. So I had seen sort of siloed community sites that were sort of, getting everybody onto one platform. So when I first saw social media arrive, it didn't feel new. I kind of knew what I was looking at, and it just felt like it was kind of the harbinger of the end of the wild, wild web. And of course it was. social media silos arose from there. MySpace itself died, but things kept happening. So, at the time, people asked me to put stuff on MySpace, and I did. And I just kind of felt irritated to even be asked. I'm like, I already have my own site. I already have my own stuff. Why do I need to put it on this thing that everybody else is using? And then, of course, we all kind of live in the world now of what happened next. Then after MySpace, Facebook showed up, and again people prodded me to join, and again I joined, and I joined it and I unsubscribed, and then I joined it and then I unsubscribed. And the first time somebody sent me a poke, I was so annoyed that I just immediately unsubscribed. I just thought that the whole core concept behind social media was, again, just to kind of corral all of us together in sort of a big silo so that we could all be monetized. And it would sort of convert us from these sort of free-thinking and free-ranging Homo sapiens into this manageable pool of marketing demographic data that could be exploited. And, of course, that's what social media is. I mean, that's the business model of social media. It's not news. It was pretty clear, even at the very birth of that technology, that this new paradigm with these social silos was probably going to create kind of a flood of change that would almost entirely erase the world of self-hosted websites, the antediluvian world with GeoCities and quirky web forums and web rings and all this nutball creativity that was all over the web before the rise of social. I mean, you wouldn't have everybody getting excited by Mahir Kiss You or going to Zombocom to have all their dreams fulfilled. If you don't know what those things are, I highly recommend you check out Mahir Kiss You and Zombocom, especially Zombocom. So I hated the shift. I thought it was anti-creative. It was anti-social. It was addictive. It was bad for relationships and society at large. It enforced a kind of grid of conformity on how human expression would work. Everything, you could say anything you want and do anything you want, as long as it was within these boxes, in this feed, sorted by this algorithm, and done on this site where you agreed to all this monetization. And not only that, one of the things that had made the early web so exhilarating was that it was open and free. And this was closed and proprietary. You couldn't cross-post and link from this silo to other places. It didn't become a partner to your personal website. It became a replacement from your personal online identity. And really nothing that has happened in the following years since I first encountered Facebook has done anything to change my mind. I mean, pretty much it's played out the way it looked like it was gonna. And now the web is kind of this wasteland with low traffic, mostly ignored little watering holes, little weird ass websites that do still exist, but they have very, very tiny amounts of traffic. They don't really make money. And they are just kind of sitting outside in the lonely dark while the majority of humanity is over here in these giant click funnels. And they spend most of their lives with their photos, their videos, their comments, their relationships, their experiences, their hopes, their dreams, their ambitions, their whole souls fed into this tiny handful of little closed silo apps that are designed to feed them other people's hopes and dreams and keep you engaged. And that is not a new thing. I'm just talking about something that has been in the world we live in for a while. But I remember that spidey sense tingling when social media was starting to explode and feeling like, oh man, this is not a good change for the web. This is not a good change for the internet or for culture or for technology. And my spidey sense is tingling again around AI. So why is that? I mean, it's been tingling louder and louder for a couple of years now. And when the first AI tools dropped, I thought they were pretty interesting tech. I thought that DALL-E was pretty cool. I've been interested in neural networks and large language models for most of my long technology career. When you see these sort of techno-utopian AI people giving TED Talks and talking about how it's going to solve all the world's problems, and it's so great. They sometimes do talk about that there's downside, right? We could lose control. AI could take over the world. It could do bad things, but we don't need to worry about that. As long as we keep in control, it's going to be fine. And really, those are a little bit science fiction fears. They're kind of not the ones that are bothering me. They might be true. I mean, I don't know. But the people who are talking about and developing and promoting and pushing the generative AI technologies, the large language models, etc., they're kind of using the same world-changing, revolutionary, life-saving, wonderful, glowing terminology that was used to talk about crypto and smartphones and virtual reality and the internet itself, like everything. And if you look back, most technology, it arrives, it gets overpromised and overhyped, it does disrupt things, then it gets incorporated into our daily lives to one degree or another, and then it'll deliver on like 10% of the world-changing promise that it was intended to do. And then the other 90%, it will either just not happen or it will just create a different, twice as many problems. Think about like smart speakers. A few years ago, smart speakers, and Siri and Alexa and Hey Google and all those things. Those arrived, and it was like the hot new product category. Everybody had to have one. We were all going to talk to our assistants, and we all asked. Oh yeah, see, it's talking in the other part of the room just because I mentioned its name. We got them to sing some songs and tell us some jokes and ask us about the weather, and then now, I don't know. The only time I ever use that is when I'm driving in the car and I need to do a hands-free thing, like finding a restaurant or responding to a text message without touching my phone, which is, charging in the center console instead of using it while I'm driving. Would I use this technology more if it was smarter? Would I use it more if ChatGPT was stuck in it or had some other large language model back there making it a super genius and whatever? Would I drive along and have a conversation with the AI in my car? I don't know. I don't think I've ever been that bored in my life. I don't know if that would make anything better. So I don't see that kind of thing is going to be very enjoyable. It's fascinating that they can create human-like conversations. And they're very, very well-informed most of the time, although they struggle to tell the difference between fact and fiction and fantasy and reality. But a conversation with an algorithm is just boring. It just is. I've tried it. It's amusing for 5 seconds. It doesn't replace a human conversation. Image generators, fun to play with for every now and then. Like, they're kind of occasionally goofily useful. But honestly, most of what they put out to me is just boring. I can, people, type, make me 25 images of a pretty lady, and I'll get 25 images of a pretty lady. But, they're all kind of the same generic, boring thing. I know people are putting in more interesting prompts, but I still have yet to see almost any generated art that moves me in any way. It all just feels kind of bleh. And then, take song generators. I could say, make me 3 country western songs that sound like Shania Twain, and you know what? I make it about my cat. They'll generate the songs. They'll sound kind of like real songs. Like, they'll sound like there's structure and melody and words, and it's impressive. But they're kind of boring because there's no there. There's no backstory. If you really liked the song, could you go see the artist perform live? Do they have a catalog of stuff? Are you into music? If you're into music, nothing's more boring than an AI-generated song. And it's really just because there's nothing behind an AI-generated creation. There's just a wish followed by a million statistically generated fulfillments of said wish until somebody picks one and says, yeah, that one. That's the one I'm going to go with. So to me, I mean, I ask myself, I'm like, why would I want to have a conversation with something that's essentially a brainless echo box beyond asking for directions? Why would I contemplate the meaning or intentionality behind a machine-generated video or image or song? Because there isn't one. There was no meaning. There's no creative choices having been made. There's no intentionality. It can't be beautiful in the way that like a crayon drawing from a child can be beautiful. And it can't even be ugly in an interesting way. It's just a bunch of calculated pixels. And I just find it uninspiring, unmoving, uninteresting. So that is a critique, a kind of shallow critique about AI, but I think that's still not really what's bothering me. That's not causing the spidey sense. So if I probe my own thoughts a little bit deeper, the core thing that I think that is bothering me is that I am a big believer in the creative process, not just for the art that results, but for the impact it has on the individual who is experiencing that process. And the replicator approach to making your creativity happen is sort of short-circuiting the entire creative process and going straight from wouldn't it be cool if to, oh, there it is in milliseconds. And in so doing, this removes, to me at least, about 99% of the value of creating something that is conferred upon the person who does the creation. I mean, set the end product aside and whether or not the result is inspiring or interesting. Here's what I mean. Okay, so let's say I'm failing something. I'm sleeping really bad. I'm angry. I have something to work out. I don't really know why. I don't have any good obvious reason. Or I'm sad and I just sit down. Things don't feel right. So I sit down and I grab a pen and I grab a piece of paper and I start to journal. I think maybe if I put my thoughts into words, I will understand my thoughts better. And so I journal and I think. And after about 20 minutes, I take a break. I go and I sit and I drink some coffee, I stare out the window, I pet my dog. Maybe I meditate for a few minutes, eat an apple for breakfast, whatever. Now, an hour later, some of my thoughts are sort of crystallizing. And my first thoughts have been kind of flushed out, and my second thoughts have started to come to the fore. And I've discovered a way to say what I'm feeling, and I've written something in the process. And it's a creative piece. But I don't share that. It's not for consumption by others. It is, it's a personal exercise, no matter how beautifully written I may decide it was. The point of the exercise was the personal process. And it wasn't about the output. It was about personal exploration. The technology required to go through this process has been with us for a while. A notepad, writing utensil, cup of coffee, an apple, a dog. Okay. People have done this sort of process for millennia. And of course, even if this content is never shared with the world, it's still creativity. Because creativity in this case is the practice and process of going through that exercise. Now that night, I go to sleep. My mind sort of processes the day's events while I'm going through REM sleep, and I've got these vivid dreams where pieces of my past and my present, they intermingle in all these unexpected ways. And when the alarm goes off, I'm engaged in a conversation with somebody, and I don't want to leave. Something important is being said or is about to be said, and the dream dissipates after the second time I hit the snooze button, and I wake up and I feed the dog, and I make a pot of coffee, but I've got images of this dream sort of lingering in my mind. I'm remembering snatches of words. So I go straight to the notepad again. I write it down before it just dissipates. And as I'm writing, the words kind of start to transform a little from prose to poetry. I start to realizing that I've got metaphors about what I'm trying to say. I'm making allusions. I'm finding things to say that I didn't even know exactly were what I wanted to say, which was the point of the exercise all along. I didn't know what I was feeling. I needed to find out. I used creativity to do that. And by doing this, by giving a little time and a little stewing and a little sitting, my subconscious processes have now combined with my creative practice. And now some new perspectives are being found. And I am thinking laterally about my feelings and about my situation. I feel less sad. Something is emerging, and that something feels like it's got kind of a sound, a color, a shape, a smell. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, I hear a song. And the words are kind of there. I'm singing along in my head to this song that is sort of representing what I've been trying to say to myself. And maybe I have to even analyze the words to understand what my subconscious is trying to tell me, but it just kind of almost feels like I'm channeling something. So I start writing it down, and pretty soon the lyrics, the melody, the structure, they're all there. And that's what people talk about this, like it's a muse, like it's a bolt from the blue, but there's a process that leads up to it. So I get to the last line of the last verse, and I sit back and I feel like I'm high, but I haven't even had my coffee yet. It just feels like magic. Feels, dare I say, supernatural. And I'm like, oh, I understand why people believe in God now. Like, wow. Okay. Now, at this point, I've got a choice. I could just stop right there. Maybe I'm not a professional musician. Maybe I am not a professional poet or painter. Maybe the content isn't a song. Maybe it's an image. Maybe it's a story. Okay. But I could just stop there and own it. I have it. I'm plugged back into my subconscious. I've learned something about myself, the process, the practice, the persistence. They've led me to a creative moment, and it feels like it's coming from somewhere. And I can just be happy with that. I could do that. Or I could share it. And what's really interesting is at that point, if I make the decision that I'm going to share this, again, let's stick with the song, I'm going to make the decision to create a shareable representation of this concept, of this feeling, of this thing. And that would mean maybe expanding, polishing, figuring out how to play the song on a piano or a guitar or something else, and basically turning it into from a discovery that comes from my own creative process into a recording. This takes a lot of work. This doesn't just happen. There's a lot of technical work. There's a lot of sort of craft work, artisan work, but it's also often social work. The song may be beyond my ability to play. I might need a drummer, a piano player, a violin player, whoever can help me make the song happen. And so I contact my friends and I set up time and we get together and we make it together. And I bring them the core idea, and it resonates with them, and then they bring some of their own thoughts and their own ideas. They bring their own musical riffs. They bring their own inputs. What if it was like this here? What if this got a little faster there? Would it hit a little harder if we extended this verse? And so the recorded song at the end of this, by the time it's done, represents multiple voices, not just mine. And in creating it, in bringing it into the world, I've got new memories and new time with people that I care about. I have spent time being collaborative and working together with other people to make something. That is fantastic. So now we fast forward. Now it's been a couple months, and now I'm just sitting in a recording studio with a bass, trying to get through a couple of takes without messing up. And then I'm just like, whoa, this is it just suddenly it hits me, and I've had this happen. It's like, wow, this is cool. How there was this process by which something I was feeling and didn't even have a name for was now this thing that didn't exist before. And this thing is not just a resulting recording of some audio. It's everything that was involved in getting to that point. There was the journaling and the dreaming, the moment of inspiration, the choice to share it, crafting, collaborating, and then in the end, there are two things that exist. There's a creative journey that I had, and there's a song, which is something I can share with anybody who has the ability to listen to a song. And when I listen to that song, I relive that journey. And during that journey, I've grown as a person. So, art is not merely the end product. It's not merely the song or the image or the poem. It's the process that leads to it. It's the practice of introspection, using creative tools of expression to explore your experiences, and committing to personal exploration and growth. The song is the tip of this large iceberg, and usually the listener never sees that. But that is the process of living with artistic practice. Writing, painting, music, whichever language an artist uses. This enriches the life of an artist. But let's now compare that experience, which is one I have had countless times over, but let's compare that to AI-based creation process. So let's just say I'm feeling something. I'm sleeping badly. I'm angry. I have no obvious reason to be. I'm sad. I don't know why. I'm struggling. I need to say something. Well, there's this LLM-based therapy bot app that I can install and have a virtual conversation with, and it gives me some emulated empathy. It remixes some self-help advice. Gives me some suggestions that are probably useful. Stuff I could have probably gotten out of a self-help book, but I don't go to the library anymore, so because it's not on my phone. But anyways, after that conversation, I still feel pretty much the same. I might have a few ideas about things I could do, but I'm not really any closer to understanding that. But, you know, the AI bot suggested that journaling is useful, so I decided to write about that. So I open up my laptop and I start writing. And the AI assistant in my writing tool starts suggesting alternate constructions of what I write, you know, telling me the better way to write it, fixing my grammar, fixing my spelling, suggesting that I might want to change things. And, you know, maybe the end result sounds more professional, but it doesn't really sound like me, and I'm being sort of nudged the whole time. So I'm not really getting anywhere in here. I'm not really getting any digging. And I'm being kind of course-corrected and guided towards sort of like the statistical norm of good writing. And so I kind of give up on that. And instead I hop on social media and spend an hour doom scrolling. Sleep badly. I don't really remember if I had any dreams, but when I wake up the next morning and I feel like shit, I'm like, oh, well, when I was looking at the doom scroll last night, I saw this cool new AI music generator app, and maybe I can express myself with music. So I go to the AI music generator and I type in, make me an angry song about being confused about my life. And within a minute, it generates me 3 options. And the lyrics are kind of angry. The songs sound a little bit like a cover band who's like playing a oddly familiar song that they kind of forgot how to play, so they just sort of riffed it. It's familiar, but it's not exactly a song I know. I'm amused for a minute. It's kind of interesting. I'm impressed, like, wow, that's realistic. That's pretty cool. Maybe I regenerate a few times. I get a variant that I like a little better than the others, and there's a little button that says, you know, share this song, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to share that with the world. Look, this is my new song about how I was feeling. I share it, and then I go pour myself a bowl of cereal, and I'm still angry, and by 2 days from then, I will forget this ever happened. It's a much shorter journey. In fact, I've kind of successfully avoided the entire journey. I have made a professional sounding song, but I haven't done any personal growth. I haven't learned anything about myself. I haven't crafted anything. I've gotten the end result, but denied myself all of the personal benefit of doing that for myself. And it's a little bit like if I wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail, which is 2,000 miles long, I show up at the head of the trail, I take a picture with the trailhead, snap, and then I get in a helicopter, I fly to the end of the trail, top of the Mount Katahdin, and I take another picture, snap, and then I did the trail so much faster. Probably didn't get anything out of that experience, but it's faster. And I think this is the concern that really gets to me. I'm a little worried about people having this shortcut in their pocket all the time and embedded in everything they use. It's so ubiquitous and pervasive. It winds up in their search results. It winds up in their text editors. It winds up in their browser. It winds up in their apps. I feel like it will be so tempting to just jump to the end of the process that people will not realize how much they're shorting themselves. They're missing their own growth. They're stunting their own growth because creative practice deepens your understanding of yourself, and collaboration with other people creates powerful interpersonal connections. And the idea that you're bad at writing, painting, playing guitar, singing, sculpting, doing poetry, that's not a sin that needs a computer to correct it so it's good. It's just a stage in your learning and your development. In fact, some of the best art ever created in terms of like resonance and connectability, relatability, humanity, it's raw, polished, it's unprofessional, it's out of tune, voices are cracking, colors are blurry, messages. If you auto-tuned the Velvet Underground, if you don't know who the Velvet Underground are, find out. So the thing is with these tools, they are powerful and they can be used to do good things. They can be used to help produce certain things. But if a pitch corrector fixes my singing, it's kind of no longer really my voice. And if an LLM fixes my prose, then it's not really my words. And if an image or audio generator just generates something from my prompt, none of that's really me. That's just my wish. But there's not a me in it. So, I mean, no wonder this kind of creation to somebody like me feels really kind of beige, benign, hollow, dull, polished, pointless. If this is the way of the future, where people kind of just are taking shortcuts to create shiny, vapid digital artifacts, but they think the real creative process is like too hard and too slow and too cumbersome, too inefficient, I just think that's a fucking tragedy. I mean, for the creators themselves, it is. Because I don't see how you can reap the benefits of creative work without doing creative work. I just don't see it. No, I mean, I know a lot of people who are creative who use these tools. And my only advice is if you want to be creative, just be very mindful about how and if and when you make use of these tools. Because they have the potential to be a barrier to actual creativity, a kind of like substance-free substitute for being an artist and finding your own voice and inhabiting a creative process. Now, when I look at the tech in general, I am kind of honestly struggling to see the real upside to generative LLM-based technology. I mean, the further we all get from living in real space with each other, working in real space with each other, and interacting in real time with each other, the lonelier we seem to get, and the sadder we get, and more disconnected and fragile we feel. And now, tech companies want to augment that reality with these sort of digital simulacrums of intelligence that are going to try to trick us into feeling less alone by mimicking empathy and give us the ability to create things without really going through the hard work or reaping any of the benefits of creating things. And the obvious beneficiaries of this are the companies that are running these server farms with all of this code that powers these products. And that then, just like with the rest of social media and the siloed technologies we work with today, they use these as ways to keep us interacting with their technologies, so they can sell information about us to each other, so they can sell products to us. And our human experience, quality of life, depth of personal understanding, and all the artifacts we create by being alive, the photos we take, the things we write, the conversations we have, the relationships we have, those are the grist for the mills of those algorithms. And now they're going to be starved by the very technologies that are relying on them. Because you see, if an AI trains on the output of a previous AI, then you kind of wind up with this AI Ouroboros, where it's just eating its own tail. New models being trained on the output from previous models. And this brings things to sort of this sameness, this kind of polished mediocrity. I think it's kind of like a bland vanilla soft serve of images, audio, video, and text, without the ability to really inspire or infuriate or improve us. I mean, actual humans need to continue to sit with actual feelings and do actual creative process and actual creative practice, just in order to give the AIs anything new. And they have to share this with each other in real life, in real space, in the real world, in real time, as well as online, but really in the real space, real world, in order to benefit. And I don't doubt that that's going to continue. Humans are awesome. We're still going to do this. But technology that makes it so easy to just, created an album before breakfast, I will never listen to it again. I don't know. It feels wrong. I mean, my prediction is that the sort of trash flood that happened in the wake of the rise of social media, of disinformation and polarization and all this stuff, that this is nothing compared to the trash flood that is going to come after us now because of this tech. And there's just pointless art, fake news, misinformation, disinformation, and the internet no longer having any semblance of joy left in it. It's already pretty bad compared to how it used to be. I think I'm not the first person to notice that, but if there is integrated large language model bullshit in like every tech product we ever use and none of it can be disabled, and there's this never-ending temptation to just, make the new thing, do the thing, here's a little dopamine hit. Where's the personal growth coming from? I mean, so there's probably 10% of good that will come from this technology. We will get smarter GPS route guidance. There will be very advanced technical areas with lots of sort of rules to them that are well suited to being assisted. Writing software, having a very smart system that can analyze other systems and suggest better code is not a bad use of this tech. Biochemistry, bioinformatics, there's probably all sorts of great applications there that I'm not familiar with. I would love to see this be able to do sort of real-time language translation at an even better level than I have today to increase the ability to communicate with people. So I'm not saying there aren't useful applications of this technology. Clearly there are. But that's not kind of what I see happening when interacting with the internet. Because the marketing and the capitalization and the monetization drivers behind this technology are not for those niche solutions or technology things. They're for trying to get everybody to use this all the time. You want this investment in these big server farms and all this technology, you want this to be pervasive. You want this everywhere. If it gives you a wrong answer, if it, can't, if it stops people from exercising actual creative muscles and everybody forgets how to make anything or sing or write anything or draw, I mean, That doesn't matter to the companies making the technology because, I mean, this is all about stock prices and making shareholders happy and commercial interests. So this is not a new perspective. I don't claim it is. Way back when Marshall McLuhan wrote Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man, he talked about the fact that the medium is the message. And in other words, you know as much about what is being said by how it is communicated as by what is the content of the message. So if the message, for example, is "Hello, Bob," and it's verbally uttered to Bob, that means one thing. Although if I say "Hello, Bob" to somebody whose name isn't Bob, that means something else. If I skywrite "Hello, Bob," or I send somebody a letter in the mail, handwritten, "Hello, Bob," or I send an email, "Hello, Bob," or I broadcast it on television, just go to touchdown, "Hello, Bob," or I tattoo it on my arm, "Hello, Bob." I mean, all of these different media, they all communicate the same words in a way that tells a very different message. And so the choice of the media provides a very important context that provides the meaning to the message beyond just the words "Hello, Bob." And if your message is mediated by an algorithmic generator that takes your intention and does its best to try to generate something in the neighborhood of your intention based on statistical models, and the result winds up feeling kind of hollow or bland or soulless or boring or lazy, but it's spelled right and the grammar's pretty good, it's, is that, to me, that media is as much of a message as its content. And that message is impersonal. So my spidey sense is saying this technology, this marketing and corporate push to incorporate this technology into everything we say and do, it feels like it's likely to be a net negative for us as a species and for our general enjoyment of life and each other and our technology. Time will tell, and I don't want to be doom and gloom. I'm definitely not a Luddite. I have every piece of technology in the damn world. But this just doesn't feel right. So that's my thoughts. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Please follow. I'm just getting started at doing this. I've been writing, blogging for quite a while, but I want to start sharing the thoughts that I create on my blog as think pieces like this for those who like to consume their media in this format. So I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it, and take care. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.